Hi guys, we're the Tattoo Teachers.
In bed.
But it's not what you think. The good part is, no, we're retired. We get to sleep in.
That's why we're the Tattoo Teachers in bed.
Yeah, but we have lots of experience to share with you.
And anyhow, wanted to contribute real quick, and just we've enjoyed so much watching the other videos, and so we're just going to jump right in. The first question came up as, what do you teach and where?
You want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. Years ago, back in the 80s, I graduated from college.
Ooh.
And my student teaching and my first teaching job was at Ouachita Junior High School in Ouachita Parish. I've always taught in Ouachita Parish school system.
They don't know what parish is.
Oh, we're in Louisiana, so we have parishes instead of counties. Sorry. So I've always taught in the Ouachita Parish school system. So I started out at Ouachita Junior High School and then ended up at Sterlington High School in the same parish. But I ended up in a high school.
To clarify, a lot of you are probably in states or in districts around the country, around the world, that may have the small little independent school districts. We don't have that here. Our districts are divided by municipal or governmental boundaries.
Like counties.
Yeah, when she says parishes, think of the county you live in. A county here has its own school district. Every little community doesn't have its own independent school district. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and those are relatively recent. I have a similar story. I've always been in the same school district in Ouachita Parish. Briefly, I taught at a children's home when I was first getting started, and then I moved into the parish system, and I've always been with the Sterlington schools, with Sterlington High School, and then at Sterlington Middle School as the principal. And all these are in Northeast Louisiana.
And that first little thing that got you started was Bob and Jane Jones.
We're going to get to that in just a
Yay,
moment. Number
okay.
2, how long have you been teaching?
Well, I taught at Ouachita Junior. Well, my teaching experience was about 15 years, and then my counseling experience was about the same, something like that. It was 10 years, and then my counseling experience was the rest of that. I ended with 33 and a half years of teaching experience and school counseling experience. I was a teacher and then moved into school counseling.
I started out as a classroom teacher. I was in a classroom for 10 years as well. 7th and 8th grade English, some language arts. I taught a little bit of everything, but
I did too.
Primarily English.
Back in the day when you got certified, like I was certified 1 through 8, so I could teach anything in grades 1 through 8, and you'll realize that English was just about the only subject I didn't teach. And when you listen to me, you'll know that I never taught English.
I was in for 10 years in the classroom, and then I became an assistant principal, moved into the office at the high school. We were a combination school then, grades 7.
We taught together at one point.
We were together in the same building. We were a combination school, grades 7 through 12, and I handled primarily the junior high students, the 7th and 8th grade discipline and observations and that sort of thing. And then we broke off the junior high part and became a true middle school, and I was the principal there for 4.5 years.
And that's where he retired from.
That's where I retired from.
Okay.
Did you know you always wanted to be a teacher? When
I was in 6th grade, I knew I wanted to be a teacher because of my teacher. And I'll get to that in a minute. But from 6th grade on, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I stuck with that throughout. And my dad and my mom encouraged me in that area, and so that's where I was.
I did not. I was a late bloomer as far as education.
He floundered for a while. I had to push him.
Well, yeah, there's some truth to that. But also, my parents were both in the business.
That's right.
My mom and dad were both in education. My dad was a teacher and a coach, and my mom worked in the classroom as what would now be called a para. They called it a teacher's aide back in those days. And then she moved into the office. The story I always told teacher groups when we used to present was from the day I started 1st grade until the day I graduated from high school, one of my parents was within 100 yards of me.
Woo!
Every freaking day.
Tough.
Every day.
You had it bad.
I was at the elementary school.
Smart.
We shared a campus with the junior high where my dad was. Then when the junior high moved, my dad was teaching there. Then when I moved to high school, my mom was there. So
wow,
that will explain a lot.
that's amazing.
I got into it late. I was in corporate world, in banking and finance for several years. Did title work for a law office, and then had an opportunity to help some kids. Was asked to help some junior high students with some writing to prepare them for our state standardized test, and had a small group of kids, and oh my God, those kids were tough. But I absolutely loved it. Just loved that experience. The guy who kind of headed that at the time knew that I enjoyed writing. I had published some, and just loved it, and went to him and said, tell me how to do this all the time. I was already certified. I'd gone through when I finished my undergraduate degree and got certified, but just had a terrible student teaching experience, and sat out, but just loved it, and so happy that I got back into it.
And I will say that your corporate experience helped you as a teacher a whole lot. I didn't have that to draw from. He had a lot of outside school experience, and all I ever had was school experience. And I think that helped you be a better teacher. And
a lot of the advice that we give in our videos is initially based in my corporate experience and how I learned to deal with people in stressful situations.
Right.
Because there's two things you don't mess with. You don't mess with a person's money. You don't mess with their kids. I learned the money part in the corporate world. I learned the kid part in education. You put those two together, you figure that out, life will go a lot smoother.
Yeah.
What is your typical teacher outfit?
Well, mine was leggings and a big old shirt. Big old top that, went practically to my knees, and leggings. And, that for a while, they were saying no leggings, but I still wore them, and they didn't fire me. But I had a bunch of years by then, so... and I had I don't know, that's what I wore. What'd you wear?
I've never worn leggings, but I feel like I've missed out based on the number of times that she's made that reference, not only in videos, but on her own life. As a classroom teacher, typically it was just khakis and a button down. When I was getting certified in administration, I was helping in the office during my off time, so typically I would wear a tie. When I became an administrator, I was a tie nearly every day. We had the little spirit days on Fridays, and so it was just, like a coaching shirt, athletic pullover for ball games and stuff, because we were always going to be working games that like on a Friday night, and we knew we were going to be out late and wouldn't have time to change. When I moved full-time as a middle school administrator, same thing, kind of a button-down and a tie, and the longer I stayed in that job, the more I kind of eased off that. I kept the button downs, but the tie for the most part chunked that. Got sick of that. Number 5. What did you bring for lunch?
Well, depending on my diet at the time. If I was on a diet, it was like lettuce wraps with ham and mustard and bell pepper wrapped up together or something. But when I was gaining weight, it was whatever was in the cafeteria. My cafeteria favorite was, I always ate on vegetable soup grilled cheese day. That was my absolute favorite day to eat. Most people's favorite day at our school was chicken day, and I did like that day, but my favorite was vegetable soup and grilled cheese in the cafeteria.
Wednesdays were chicken days. As a teacher, typically I brought my lunch in. You did too, back and forth.
Most of the time.
Just a sandwich and some chips maybe.
This is the Bologna King.
Yeah, I was the Bologna King for many years. One thing I do want to point out though, since most of you that are watching this are classroom teachers, and if any of you are motivated and want to move into a different area in education, go into administration, go into counseling, or you can do both, some people do both, or become a curriculum coordinator, something like that. One thing you need to know about lunch is that your lunch is pretty much dictated by the activities in the school.
Right.
As a teacher, you would normally have a set lunchtime every day you can count on. I realize you have duty days where you're going to be on lunch duty or whatever, but that you generally know that when school begins, that on these days you prepare for it. As an administrator, as a counselor, there are days you don't get to eat. Or there are days you're interrupted frequently during lunch, and if you get like me, you just get frustrated and throw it away or stick it back in the fridge and just go back to dealing with it, because if you're the administrator on duty, as the lone junior high person, and there's a fight, or a teacher sends some kid down because they had some major issue, you put the spoon down, the fork, whatever, and you go and deal with it. So please be aware of that.
Yeah, I know a lot of teachers think that administrator sits in that office and don't do anything, but that is not the case at all. And I know that because I was married to a school administrator. I was in the counseling office, and at the beginning I didn't move out of my office. I thought I was needed 24/7, and you finally came when we worked together and said you have got to take a lunch break because I was getting frustrated and, blah, blah, blah. So
I lost a lot of weight my first year as an administrator because I felt like I had to be all things to all people.
Right.
I lived off M&Ms and little peanut butter crackers, and I would just grab a handful in between runs, and that'll burn you out in a hurry.
Sure will.
What is your favorite teaching book?
Well, I don't read.
You're probably going to be disappointed by the responses you're going to hear.
You are probably going to be disappointed. I'm not a big reader, and I know that's a flaw as a teacher. So when I was growing up, though, I read 2 books, and I can name them.
But they inspired you.
They did. When I was little, the bookmobile would come by my house. I lived in a rural area.
They have no idea what the bookmobile is.
They don't.
They're too young.
Way too old.
Way too.
Well, a bookmobile is for country kids that maybe don't get into town very often.
Hitch up the wagon, Paul. We're going to town.
And they would bring books in this little air-conditioned van, and we would wait out by the road, and we would go in and get our book, check it out, and then 2 weeks later they would come back by, and the bookmobile lady, I don't know her name to this day, but she tried to take that book away from me. It was called The Blueberry Pie Elf, and I was in love with that book, The Blueberry Pie Elf. It was Jane Thayer, I believe, wrote the book. And all summer long that summer, I kept that book. She kept saying, "Why don't you try to check out another book, sweetie?" And I would say, "I want to renew this one. I want to renew this one."
You got to throw down in the van.
And then when I was about the 6th grade, I read The Ghost Who Went to School. And
Ghost Who Went to School.
Ghost Who Went to School. Yeah. And it was by Judith Spearing. And what I loved about that, the thing that I remember about it is the ghost ate donut holes because there was nothing there. So that stuck with me. I love that. But my teacher inspired me to read that, and I did. But I really, if I had a problem, I Googled it most of the time back, when Google came along. But I'm not a big reader. I'm sorry. I'd rather watch a video or watch TV.
I am a big reader, and again, you're probably going to be disappointed by this response. And I've read all of or picked out parts of all the educational experts, but I'm talking about Harry Wong and all that stuff. But to be honest with you, the book that really made the biggest impact was called The 20 Elephant Restaurant by Russell Hoban. And guys, you need to read this book. And the idea behind the book is a very simple, illustrated book. I would read it to my classes. I read it to a high school class during my student teaching, and then would read it to all of my junior high classes. And the idea behind the book is how easy it is to become frustrated, to zero in on such a minuscule problem that it makes you forget that there's another world out there that really that has bigger issues you need to be focusing on. The 20 Elephant Restaurant, Russell Hoban. Find it. You'll be glad that you did. Number 7. What is your favorite teacher movie? And we actually, I think
we agree.
We have the same one.
But it's because of our age, and probably you young people out there are not going to know what we're talking about. But the first teacher movie I ever remember was Nick Nolte, Teachers, and it was the first movie I ever saw about teachers. So I guess that's why it's my favorite. But that's it for both of us, I'm thinking.
I remember The Blackboard Jungle and To Serve with Love, and because I'm a tiny bit older than her, but not much, and I probably just paid more attention to that because my mom did. But we share that. Teachers came out in 1984. Nick Nolte, Joe
I
Beth
had
Williams.
just become a teacher. That was my very first year to teach, 83, 84. So I guess that's why it made an impression. Remember that teacher movie? Gosh, I'm not going to be able to describe it
we're
to
going to
you.
get too far out on that.
Okay.
The dude from Karate Kid was the main student character, and 38 Special did the soundtrack.
Oh,
soundtrack.
Yeah. That was the best part on that.
Yeah, I love 38 Special, so that was cool. Donnie Van Zant, what's up? Let's see, number 8. Who was your favorite teacher? I know this is going to be easy for you.
Yes, it was. My favorite teacher was the teacher who inspired me in 6th grade, Miss McWilliams. She was awesome. She made me feel special. She made me feel smart. She made me feel like I could do anything, and I wanted to be Miss McWilliams. I wanted to be just like her. I had good teachers, though. I'll say that. I had good teachers. We didn't have kindergarten when I went to school, but 1st grade through 12th grade, I had really good teachers. I can't say enough about them. They all inspired me. Miss Lyles, Miss Bolden, Mr. Cooper, just to name a few, Miss Williams, Miss Kincaid.
We were hanging on Mr. Cooper.
Seriously, I had a teacher named Mr. Cooper, and he was so cool. He was the coolest man I had ever met in my life to that point. I was in 7th or 8th grade, and he was great. So I had all good teachers. I can't name a bad teacher.
We're going really long.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Mine is easy too. Mine was Miss Etzel, Miss Catherine Etzel. I had Miss Etzel, 11th and 12th grade literature teacher, and she was so tough. And when I was in school, 12th grade English was not required for graduation then. That's how long ago this has been. But if you were college bound, you just knew you had to take it. And it was primarily English lit. And she treated us and scored us and assessed us on college level, and I hated it, and I hated her, and I made sure she knew that I didn't like her. And I was fortunate enough when I got into to education that she was still around, and I wrote her a letter and told her what a horrible little hag I thought she had been when I was a kid, but that I was finally getting it. She prepared me so well for college, and I told her all those stories, and she called me. She called me on a cold November Saturday afternoon, and that chill just kind of went through me like I was 15 again. But we had the best conversation, and God bless her. She's gone now, but she was a fantastic teacher, and I appreciate everything she did.
Right.
And not at the time.
I don't know if I mentioned Miss Lyles, but she was one of the first young teachers I ever had, and I just loved her too. So I just had great teachers.
Yeah.
I liked all my teachers.
Then we're asked, number 9, to list our favorite YouTubers. I don't remember if that's just education or what it is.
I think it was just education. Mr. Thane is the one that
Mr.
comes to
Thane.
mind.
And because Mr. Thane was one of the first guys we ran across as we began, and when we started this and started kind of looking at other people, we just liked his attitude about things.
Right.
I can't pull off the backwards cap. I know some people have tried it. I don't know. That's just too much backup quarterback for me. I just can't. But Mr. Thane rocks it and does a great job, and we appreciate him including one of our little video replies for a question he had one time. So love Joe Rogan. Love Joe Rogan's videos. They are very educational, very thought-provoking. So old Joe. Yeah. Number 10, any classroom management tips?
The only classroom management, I was not a good disciplinarian, I'll go on and tell you that, but the thing that I found, and I got better at it as, of course, as years go on, about year 7, you kind of get the hang of teaching and everything kind of comes together, but the biggest tip I could give is consistency. It has to be consistent. Kids thrive on consistency, they thrive on structure. Structure.
Holy cow.
I didn't teach English.
And she doesn't smoke pot.
No, I don't.
Despite what you just heard.
No. But that's the only tip I can give. Consistency and structure.
Mine, I'm gonna say the same. Kids want boundaries, even though on the surface they rebel against that. My first few years was just horrible because I wanted to be a dictator. I wanted my kids to snap to attention when I walked into the room. It's just so stupid. And you learn. I would be such a great classroom teacher now.
Exactly.
If I walked back into the classroom right now,
yes, me too.
I'd be smoking
now that
everybody.
we're retired and we've had time to sit back and think, we'd be great at everything.
And you would be because you learn
right.
not to sweat the little things.
Right.
And
Right.
as a young teacher, I just didn't get
Right.
that. I thought it was all about the discipline.
Right.
And if you do the early stuff early and you stick to it and you get those procedures down, can't emphasize procedures enough, young teachers. Get those procedures now, teach them. Spend all the time you have to, because once the procedures are there, then the rest of it, you have a little wiggle room then to get into the fun stuff.
And I'll say about your students that you taught, when we see them in the grocery store, wherever we see them now, the older students, they remember how he made them feel. He made them feel loved. He was funny. He had a great personality. And they always appreciate that. Just the way you make a student feel, they remember that.
Always have stories. Kids love personal stories.
They do.
And it just makes them, it builds that relationship between you and the students. And folks, one of the great things about teachers is we live forever. And what we really do, even when they haul us away, and that's the ashes to ashes thing, your kids will always remember how you made them feel. They will tell their kids about it.
Well, both of our favorite teachers are no longer with us on this earth.
And here we are
still
talking about them.
Miss
Teachers
McWilliams
are
and
immortal.
Miss Etzel, right.
Teachers that do it right are
Right.
immortal. And finally, what is one reason you decided to become a teacher?
Miss McWilliams. That's the reason I decided. She was just the best. She was everything to me.
Mine's purely self-serving. I liked the feeling that it gave me. I liked getting that feedback, that immediate feedback, positive or negative, and to know that there was room to build. I just liked that it made me feel good. So it's purely narcissistic, and narcissistic teachers are some of the best teachers, because we want to feel good, and when we make others feel good, it makes you feel good. Crap, there's no better deal than that. Hey, we ran really long. I'm gonna try to cut this down. Thanks
Sorry,
so much.
we're just talkers.
We're subscribing to everybody that gets on, so we appreciate everything you do for our kids.
Our YouTube channel is Tattoo Teachers in Bed.
Yep.
So,
Thanks.
Thanks.
See
Bye.
ya.